All right, welcome back, everyone. Excited to have everyone back for Maggie's presentation. Maggie Seybold is with WelcomeHome CRM. She is the VP of Customer Insights. And I was looking forward to this presentation just because being in sales, it sounds like you're going to address finding that needle in the haystack, and also like how frustrating and like discouraging and time consuming that can be. And I'm looking forward to your insights to utilizing the right information, the right data to get the sales team where they are comfortable and they can actually have meaningful conversations. But before we started, I want to get that fun fact. Do you have something you can share with us, Maggie?
I do, and I will say this was the most stressful part of preparation for me, just figuring out, how loud am I going to go on my fun fact. And so I decided to go for shock value. And I can't see your faces, so I'm not sure how you're going to react, but I was just sharing, I was a 13-pound baby. So for all of the women in the room, and I apologize to my mother every day. I had the Maryland state record for a year, and that's my fun fact.
The record holder Maggie is here to present, so that's quite the fact there. So thank you for sharing that with us. I'm so excited about your presentation about the traits of best performing salespeople in the communities, and I'll hand it over to you at this point.
Great. Well, let me just get my screen up. Okay.
You did a lot better than I did, so well done.
I mean, this is me every day, at least 4 times a day. So I've got this skill set down, thankfully.
Got it. All right. Thanks, Maggie.
Thanks, Larry. Well, as Larry mentioned, my name is Maggie Seybold. I'm the VP of Customer Insights and Data Analytics at WelcomeHome Software. We are a senior living sales and marketing CRM. And my job at the company is to take all of the data that sits behind the 2,000 communities that use our software today, to package up that data and serve it back to the senior living industry, to our customers, to ultimately support you in your strategy and in your day-to-day sales execution to push results. So I'm super excited to be here. My favorite part of my job is connecting with operators and leaders in the space and hearing what's going well and what opportunities we have to improve. So I think this topic is super relevant. We're all facing the new challenge of the digital age post-COVID, and I'm really excited to get in here and share some of what the best of the best are doing to manage this challenge, and just talk a little bit about how data can help you find opportunities for improvement and find quality in that ever-growing lead volume. So with that, I will jump in, but please, keep track of your perspectives, keep track of your questions, and I'm excited to talk a little bit more about it at the end. All right, so starting with just a general acknowledgement of the challenge we are up against today. We have more leads than we have ever had in the past. Not only do we have more leads, we have more leads from more sources, which are difficult to manage. And on top of that, we have twice as many leads from online lead sources as we had 10 years ago. So we're still all adapting to this change. But there are some specific challenges that come into play with online and aggregator leads. One of them is speed really matters. And the reality is, being a sales director is really hard. You're stretched a lot of different directions. We're in an environment today where, turnover is a problem. Staffing in all areas of the community can be a challenge. And it's hard to reach out to these people quickly, but it matters a lot. So we'll talk about some strategies for how to combat that problem. And then the last piece here, just a general acknowledgement of the fact that, these online leads are hard to win. Less than 6% of them end up converting. And it's because we're dealing with a new age of senior living buyer, someone who is digitally enabled, someone who is starting their search earlier and doing more research across more options. And it can be really time consuming for sales directors to learn to work all these separate leads, to prioritize them, just to see many of them get lost. So we are certainly in a challenging environment today, but the good news is there are some strategies that some of the best operators on our platform have taken on to meet this challenge, persevere, and really see positive results. So I'm excited to take you through some of those strategies and then talk a little bit at the end about how you can take some of these strategies home to implement. at your own communities. All right, so I was sharing with the team before this meeting, I love this topic. Unfortunately for me, I started with 90 minutes of material and had to whittle it down to 20. So I settled on these 4. There are certainly more things to talk about here, and I'm happy to get in touch offline if we have questions or want to have a personal conversation. But the 4 that feel most impactful to me, lowest hanging fruit, are first, have a marketing strategy that promotes prospect education. In this day and age, with so many leads inquiring online, getting information in front of them about senior living and about your community will save your sales directors an enormous amount of time. And it will also increase the prospect's intentionality around actually moving in. We'll get into the data on this in the next couple slides, but the next topic we'll cover is proactively managing your lead pipeline. I mentioned already, there are so many leads today, and the temptation can be just to deal with them as they come in. There are a lot, it feels like a flood. But we need to do work on the front end to be more strategic about what our lead pipeline looks like in order to hedge our bets for success. So having a lot of different lead sources, but also being very tactical about how we invest in those different lead sources. The third topic is prioritizing speed to lead. I've got some ideas on how we can make this a little bit easier, but not only is speed to lead important, the method with which you contact people is also incredibly important. We'll touch on that a little bit as well. And then the last topic here is really, in this digital age, the tour is more and more important. When you're working with online leads, the only interaction they have with your community is pictures on a website. We need to get them to the tour so they can experience what their life there might look like, and we can reflect back to them how their expectations might be met. And a big piece of this is taking the time to plan the tour and having good discovery. I think a lot of this won't be all that surprising to you all, but I'm hoping that the strategies we get into in the next couple of pages will give you some ideas on how to start to make positive improvements here. All right, so on the first topic, I am a data person, so I had to share some data with you, and I'll walk you through why this is important with some examples. But as I mentioned, we have a lot of leads from online today. If we look across the industry, 35% of new leads last year were from online sources. This is important because it just increases the effect marketing has on prospects. 2 core things we need to focus on for marketing strategy. One is pre-sales funnel education for prospects, and the second is prospect re-engagement for leads that are lost. We put out a case study on this a few months ago with Arbor Company, someone who is doing fantastic in this space. And we see that if you're doing the work to educate your prospects in a meaningful and deliberate way before they reach your sales teams, those online prospects are twice as likely to convert. Not only that, but they will move in faster, saving your sales director's time, and they'll stay at the community longer, probably because they're a better fit because they knew more about what they needed in the first place. So from an ROI standpoint, having this marketing strategy in place and being really thoughtful about giving prospects the information they need is critical for online leads. Now, unfortunately, as I mentioned on a prior slide, many of our online leads end up going elsewhere, staying at home, needing a different type of care. Many of those online leads are lost. Marketing plays a critical role in re-engaging those lost leads once they have left your sales pipeline. So we can put them into a marketing automation flow that keeps them engaged and then re-engage them 2 months, 3 months after they've left. But what a bidirectional marketing automation integration can do for you is take the data you have on that prospect in the CRM and use it to inform your marketing strategy. So you're speaking their language, you know what they need. It turns out that across the industry, 10% of lost leads were re-engaged last year. And of those leads, 30% of those re-engaged leads moved in. Now, when we think about the conversion rate for a net new online lead, 6%, and compare that to 30% for re-engaged online leads, there's a very, very clear tactical answer here, which is returning to leads that you've already nurtured is well worth your time and is higher likelihood of success than a net new lead. So just making sure we're continuing back to our existing pipeline. All right, now on the second point, hedging your bets and managing your lead pipeline proactively. I'll start by just painting the picture of what the landscape here looks like today. In 2022, we saw that more than 75% of leads that came in 2022 were from online and aggregators. That is a lot of leads. And when we look at the right-hand side of this page and think about the conversion rates for these types of lead sources, turns out that online and aggregator are a lot harder to convert. They not only are they harder to convert, but they take longer to sell and they stay for less time. When we look at the same results for non-professional and professional referrals, they convert at 4 to 5 times the rate that online and aggregators do. They have shorter sales cycles and they stay longer. Now, there are a couple takeaways that you could walk away from this data with. One is that I need to invest in my referral pipelines. I think that is certainly true. I think in today's world, the temptation is to take the quick wins that you can manage from an inbound online or an inbound aggregator lead. We have got to save time for managing those non-professional and professional referral pipelines because they're just more likely to turn into a move-in for us. And the communities on WelcomeHome who do this really well, seeing conversions as high as 50% for those non-professional referral programs in particular. These are incentivized programs. These are programs with consistent communication in place to the referrers. So sending out a monthly newsletter to your residents, to the family of those residents and their friends that keep them engaged, keep reminding them of the benefits of the program, and proactively working with individual residents on setting up a referral pipeline as well. You can have a lot of success by just better managing your professional referral and non-professional referral programs. The other takeaway here is, well, if aggregators and online are such low conversion, should I be focusing on them less? To me here, the answer is certainly not. There is a prospect at the end of each of these interactions, but we need to be more thoughtful about how we work with those leads. For online, we already talked about the impact of marketing, but for aggregators in particular, you need to work with your reps. Many of the best performing communities that we've worked with, some of which have conversions in the 20% range for aggregators, they set very specific criteria with their aggregator reps and say, look, we cap the number of prospects you're going to send us. We only want prospects from this radius of our community. And these are our financial qualification standards. And I have quality expectations for the leads that you're sending me. If you put these systems in place, the leads you're going to get are higher quality. They're not going to waste your sales director's time and higher likelihood to convert. This one can be a divisive topic, so I'm happy to answer more questions about it at the end. We also have a case study out there on how you might approach removing aggregators from your pipeline, if that's something you're thinking about. But we'll circle back to this one at the end, I'm sure. Okay, next best practice here, speed to lead. We all know that speed to lead is important when it comes to online and aggregator leads. In fact, at WelcomeHome, we recommend you reach out to online and aggregator leads within 3 hours, and most of our communities do. But the best of the best are reaching out to these leads within 20 minutes, which is a very, very lofty goal. And some might say a nearly impossible goal to achieve. Why this is important is because a prospect contacted earlier is twice as likely to move in as someone contacted after 48 hours. This feels intuitive, but the impact on your move-in pipeline is meaningful. So going back to this 20-minute number, this is a very lofty goal. There are a couple of ways that this becomes a little bit more achievable when we look at some of what the best communities and operators are doing here. First is know your historical data. Go back through your call data, go back through your inquiry data, and understand when those inquiries are coming in, and make sure you have coverage for those times. This 20-minute metric is for all hours. So if someone inquires at 8 p.m., they're being responded to at 8:20. And what that means is you have to know when calls are coming in to be able to react to them. Obviously, we all want to have some sort of work-life balance, so we can't work around the clock, but there are ways to support this. Two that come to mind that we see most often are, one, have a centralized resource to deal with inbound inquiries. This could be a call center. This could be an internal team member whose job regionally or across a smaller set of communities is to just manage inbound. The second option is, if that's not realistic for you, figure out how to collaborate with your team to, one, protect the sales director's time, and two, get other members of the team involved. We have team members at WelcomeHome who've done time in the sales director seat. The most productive strategy here is just talk to the person who works at the front desk, maintain that relationship, get them on your side and have them help you manage the inbound calls. It's as simple as that. Making sure that you're available to deal with those inquiries or having coverage in some way or another will pay off in the long run. The secondary point here is speed to lead matters, but what matters equally, if not more, is the method with which you connect with that prospect. So on the left-hand side here, we see that 30% of prospects contacted by phone within the first 2 hours of inquiry go on to tour, whereas only 15% of prospects contacted within 2 hours by email go on to tour, and text is somewhere in the middle here. When we think about first touch point and time to tour, we see that the time to tour is much shorter for those who are connected over the phone versus connected via email. And again, text is in the middle. This is very intuitive if you think about how you manage your personal life. Maybe this is just me, but my personal inbox is a little bit chaotic. There are a lot of ads in there. I miss a lot of things in my personal email. And I do get sales emails in my personal email, and they don't feel very personal, and I usually ignore them. But if I get a call or I get a text, this feels very deliberate. It comes directly to me, it's in front of me, and I'm much more likely to act on that connection. I think as we consider how the demographics are changing and baby boomers age in, we are going to have to keep in mind the impact of text as well here, especially for care-based care types like assisted living and memory care, where the influencer is more involved in the sales process. Text and phone calls are going to become increasingly important versus emails, which are just a little bit harder to weed through for all of us. All right, and the last one, just getting to the tour. The tour is the key for these online leads. And we know we have some detail on what that tour can look like depending on where leads are coming from. So we know that lead sources that are more personal, more connected to the community, like a professional referral, a non-professional referral, or a local agency, they take much less time to come in and tour. Whereas those aggregator and online leads do take their time to come in and tour. They're doing research, they're harder to connect with, but they will come in within a week, just takes a little bit longer. I think the key takeaway on this left-hand side of the page is if you connect with someone after they've inquired, don't wait to schedule that tour. Odds are if they dwell in your system, they will go ahead and tour somewhere else, and your likelihood of moving them in becomes much lower. Let's say you do get that person scheduled for a tour. Preparation is so important to be able to nurturing that prospect appropriately on the tour. You need to have good discovery to have good planning. So we are asking the right questions in that initial call, in that initial text session. We are learning about the prospect, and then we're replicating what they would like to see at the community level. We see that for communities who logged a planning activity for at least half of their prospects in 2022, their occupancy was above 90% versus the industry average in the mid-70s. Now, I'm sure there's some outside effects here. People who are logging planning probably have much more in-depth sales processes in place, but it just speaks to the value of being deliberate about each and every prospect. And at the end of the day, with this influx of new leads, lots of leads from online, in order to spend enough time thinking about each prospect, you have to be able to whittle down that group a little bit. One more thing I'll say on just the sales cycle. We've seen in our data that most prospects, 70% will move in within 60 days across care types. If they are dwelling for more than 30 days for assisted living and memory care and 60 days for independent living, they're probably going to need a retour. We see a retour for almost every prospect who has been in the sales funnel for more than a month or two. So this tour is a huge asset to you, a huge tool, and we need to just prepare for them appropriately. All right, so I'll leave you with just one last page. This is not a pretty one, but I just wanted to share how I would think about approaching using data to find those quality leads, and then also look at how your communities are doing as a group and identify areas for improvements proactively. And I'll share an example here. This is not so boring, but the first is know the benchmarks so that you can place your performance somewhere. WelcomeHome shares quarterly reports every quarter. We do an annual year in review as well. If you haven't seen those reports, I'm happy to share them with you. Get that data and then do a comparison between your portfolio and your communities to the industry, and then compare within your portfolio as well. Understand who that top performer group is and who the bottom performers are, and see if there are any trends in that data that can alert you to possibilities for improvement. The way we typically go about this at Welcome Home is we will sit down with an operator, we'll look at their occupancy and occupancy for the period to say, occupancy in July is 70%, and we'll look at the trend over time. So we'll say, all right, you're at 70% today, but you've been losing 1 or 2 occupancy points every month for the past 6 months. What's going on here? That would indicate that we need to look at the sales funnel. So let's look at the lead flow first. How many leads do we have? If we have above around 40 leads, that might be too many. If we have below 40 leads, maybe we don't have enough. There was one operator we worked with last year who, we had a community much like the one I'm describing in the 70s, have been declining. And we looked at their data and their lead volume was really high. They had 60 leads per 100 units per month. And, I think there is a lot of pressure in the environment we're in today to go look for more leads in order to boost move-ins. But in this case, lead volume was actually taking up too much time for the sales director. We saw that high number of leads. We went in and looked in their lead sources. Turns out 80% of those leads were online and aggregators. And when we looked further down the pipeline, they weren't touring. The reason they weren't touring was because they were dwelling between inquiry and tour, because the sales director didn't have enough time to get everybody in for a tour, to connect with each of those clients. And they needed a prioritization tool to work through which prospects to work and in what order based on their needs. This comes down to good discovery. It comes down to having criteria in place with your aggregator. It comes down to having education out there online so prospects can self-select into your funnel. That's just one example. And I'm sure we'll talk about this more and possibly have questions, but I'll leave you with that. I hope this is helpful and I'm excited to talk more about it.
Maggie, that was great. Thank you so much for sharing. It's funny, when we connected recently, you told me how you were a journalism major. And I can see that, like, you have all the data, but it's really that discovery phase. What are you going to use with that data? And, definitely see everything that, where your passion is, and that kind of meets together, which is the information and what is that discovery phase. Right. You went into a lot of really important details here. And one of the few notes I took was the importance of re-engaging leads. Quick question for you. How long do you want to keep these leads in the funnel? And I know that's always a big question for people, is like, at what point are you like, okay, this is not working out, compared to re-engaging that lead and potentially having them convert?
This is a huge debate among our customers, and a great question. We have some operators that will never close a lead, and we have some operators that, demand these are closed after 30 days. Yeah. To me, I think the best approach is to make sure you have the discovery in place to have a good estimate of the expected move-in timeline. And if you move a month, 2 months beyond that expected move-in timeline, bump them back into marketing. And this does rely on the sales director having a good answer on what the expectation for the move-in timeline is. And we do know that, referral lead sources, local agency lead sources, they will take less time. Aggregators and online take longer. And the more influencers you have can also extend the length of time. So if you didn't ask this specific question and get the move-in timeline, you can probably back into it, just knowing what you know about the prospect. But it does come down to really good discovery, which, unfortunately for all of us who don't want to be on the phone again, links back to getting on the phone and having a good tour. So everything comes full circle, but it's a fantastic question. And I do think there are a couple good ways of managing it, but having strong marketing engagement in place can make an enormous difference, but it does take time. And it is another resource to have internal to your team. So, there's always a balance.
Yeah, it's really important to have those touch points so they don't go cold and then you try to re-engage them, months later. But at the same time is using that data to know, okay, we have connected with people a year after, at least that data tells that story, and why it's so important to keep all this information in the CRM so you can go back and it's very relatable for future endeavors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one more thing I'll add on this marketing engagement point is there are tools out there. Welcome Home is looking to develop this as well, that will help you figure out how much engagement that prospect has done online before they get to your sales team. That is a huge indicator of how likely they are to move in. It just shows how intentional that prospect is being. So if you can get that metric, or you can find a way to track it, that's also enormously helpful when it comes to lead scoring.
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to the story of really Ask Day in this year, which is, allow technology to handle the heavy lifting so
Right.
we can engage as people and really connect and find out, like, is this, if the potential fit, if that exists. So no, this is really good. Again, the importance of data and helping you find that needle in the haystack and without the frustration and the time delays. Dave, is there anything else you wanted to ask or comment on?
Well, actually, one thing I've been thinking about through Maggie's talk was just a bit of a nuance when we talk about digital marketing and those digital leads being lower converting. I think it's important, and maybe Maggie can comment on this, to not necessarily think that we're going to drive a digital lead to the website, that if you want to move that conversation into someone in your community's hands, one-to-one personally as quickly as possible. So I think it's important to nuance out that even your digital ads and your SEO needs to move to a phone call, because that's a much higher converting relationship than an website visit. So I just think that's something, I think that gets lost for people sometimes. They're like, well, online goes to online. And so just to make sure that we want to move, even when we're talking about, digital marketing, we want to move that to a human conversation as quickly as possible to increase your close rate. So I don't know, Maggie, if you guys see that on your back end or how you feel about that.
Absolutely. That we certainly see that. And it's, in our speed to lead clock on Welcome Home, we do have, automated emails are not going to stop the clock, but we do encourage many of our operators and customers to get automated functions in place, emails, texts, to make sure a touch point is starting to be established. And then you follow up on that touch point by calling them quickly or by texting them personally quickly. And so exactly to your point, the idea here is to get somebody in the hands of the sales director as quickly as possible. But of course, we do want to make sure they know what they're coming into. We want to know that they are aware of the care that they need and they are aware of what our community offers. It just makes the job of the sales director so much easier.
And to follow up on that, maybe talk a little bit about how you guys were, if a lot of this is educating the internal marketing and sales department at communities. So they're placing a lot of trust in us, and we're talking about that data feedback loop. So how do you work? How does Welcome Home work with them? The internal, if it's an internal team, an external agency, or a combination, which is what we find most often. How is a Welcome Home, bringing that all their valuable data back to the front, working with that marketing department or agency or combination to keep that cycle heavily informed?
We are talking about how technology tools can help you, but actually my favorite thing about Welcome Home is we've got a phenomenal support team and a full suite of customer support managers that partner with each of our clients to help them through all of their setup and all of their ongoing challenges. So the first is we have this fantastic team, which is very important to us and we're very proud of. The second thing is you put in place a marketing automation platform like a HubSpot or an Active Demand or an Active Campaign, integrate with Welcome Home and do the bi-directional data sharing. So we'll work with you to figure out what fields get pushed from HubSpot to Welcome Home, what fields get pushed back to HubSpot from. And so identifying what that set of data is can help you enormously, because when that lead on the front end finally gets to the sales team, we know from marketing already that they've read the brochure about assisted living. They have also clicked on an ad about a 2-unit bedroom. They have also looked into pools on the website specifically. That data can help you figure out what to talk to them about and what they're looking for, what to show them on a tour. And then alternatively, on the other side, if you lose them, say they decided to, move in with family out of state, you can push that data back to HubSpot. HubSpot then enrolls them in a flow of marketing that directs them to a community in that state. So, there's a lot going on here, right? But having the data flow and having the person-to-person support, it's just like, any other process in sales. But the two tools together can make an enormous impact.
No,
to-
absolutely. And that's where I was getting to. Just want to make sure that we understand how important it is to connect all these systems and how that's going to improve your life as a community.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Technology and data will allow you to be more human, is what I'm hearing, and
Right.
connecting people, where they want to be connected with. So I'll say this real quick in the chat. Ashley said, awesome presentation. So I want to let you know that. Well done. Thank you, Maggie, for that presentation. Where can people find you to further connect?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. I adore my marketing counterpart, and he is pushing me to be more out there on LinkedIn. So I'm really there. So find me on LinkedIn, find me on Welcome Home's website, shoot me an email. My email is just my first and last name at welcomehomesoftware.com. But happy to connect with anybody who's more curious about this topic. But thank you all very much. This is an awesome experience.
Now I got to ask, it seems like Smash is the place to be in October. Will you be attending Smash as well?
Of course. And I actually just found out about the Sparkly Day theme, so I need to do some work to be appropriately prepared for that. But I will be there and happy to connect there as well.
Great. Ashley, sorry, Ashley. I was talking about Ashley. Maggie, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for this great presentation, and look forward to seeing you in your sparkly outfit and Smash.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Maggie. All right. See you.
See you.
All right, perfect. So I know we got to jump out of here real quick, but the second half of the day is shaping up nice. We have 3 presenters who are going to talk about removing those barriers to the move-in. So we're going from top of funnel to bottom of funnel and move-in. So we'll be back in just about 5 minutes with Caden McKenzie from Senior Sign. All right, see you in a minute.